This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel. Hey, Ryan, how you doing today?
Hi, Dave.
Super Bowl Sunday. Although I have no idea when anything is airing or what order anything is in. This could literally be airing like in June or something like that. We're going to sound like lunatics. Yeah.
It really doesn't matter because I haven't seen a Super Bowl in 4 years. Essentially,
all of
since
my
I left
content today
Los
is going
Angeles.
to be very Super Bowl based.
Yeah, just hitting home right with where our fans are. That speaking right to our core audience, Dave.
Lots of any given Sunday prop collecting news is what I'm going for. Yeah,
I feel like this is the big. This and the 4th of July are the big American holidays that I'm really robbed of living here, because 4th of July sort of happens and it's just a day of the week here, but it's like Super Bowl Sunday, at least they're like, oh, that's a big day for you guys.
Not a day of mourning of some sort.
Exactly.
4th of July.
Yeah, 4th of July, you sort of get like you get from them kind of like, oh yeah, this is a big day for you guys, for you kids, isn't it? You get a lot of that from them, and it's it's embittered, and so I miss out on that. But I do get to enjoy that a bit because it is a day of victory. And I think the Super Bowl is just something you just miss. And my experience of the Super Bowl for the last, I think now 3 Super Bowls running has been, I wake up in the morning and I just get the New York Times update as to who is now the Super Bowl champion.
I thought, or at least I thought, I was led to believe by the NFL, by their sort of playing of games over there at Wembley and whatnot, that like NFL fever was building in London. Is that not true in the UK?
I mean, they're into it, but the game starts at 1:45. Right. And it's a 4.5 hour, 5 hour affair with the crazy halftime and everything. It's insane. Like you would actually have to, you would have to either be friend of the podcast, Kelvin Mao, or you would have to like take the next day off completely. I just don't know. I mean, look, if the Giants were in it, yes, I would figure it out, but I'm not just staying up. I'm not staying up to watch, the fucking Eagles win the Super Bowl.
I feel like that's a very specific Eagles thing for you as a Giants / New Jersey person. Yeah.
It is. They should die of gonorrhea and rot in hell. I spent 4 years in that town going to school, and I did not like Philadelphia sports before I arrived. I liked it even less after I left. All of them, the Flyers, the Eagles, the Phillies, the Sixers, all of them can there should be a big pit just dug somewhere between New York and Washington, D.C., and just bulldoze all of those franchises right into it. But I digress.
So, what's new in props?
Well, actually, Dave, shifting gears, I had a big week as far as the acquisitions go. It's a bit different because this is actually a huge thing for me. It's one of my hardest fought acquisitions ever, and I didn't pay a dime for it. I was actually paid to get it. So it came in this week. I'm very excited. It's my first actual award.
Wow, bravo.
My Golden Globe. And I think the cliche is it's very heavy. It is very heavy. I had to spot my children who both wanted to hold it because they both nearly dropped it when I handed it to them. And I'm very proud to get it. I just sadly I didn't get to be there in LA when it was handed out because I was here.
Well, would you like to give do you have your speech? Would you like to give your speech?
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking right here, surrounded by friends and memorabilia, I figured I would just give my little Golden Globe speech because I missed out on it. And so I would first like to say thank you. I'd like to express gratitude, specifically first to George R. R. Martin for trusting me with his beloved world. I really, if he had not befriended me and accepted my attempts at light fan stalking now 10 years ago, I don't know this would ever come together. And then some 5 years ago took a chance on me because I loved his world and he liked me and knew my writing, and I think just felt a little sorry for me. And I'd like to thank my family who supported me. We've now lived in London 2.5 years for this crazy job of mine. We moved during a pandemic. They also have to live with a showrunner day to day, which is not an easy thing to do for a multitude of reasons. I would like to thank HBO for believing me, or possibly being so drunk on enthusiasm that they didn't realize what they were getting into. But either way, haha, now you're stuck with me, and it's worked out, I think. And I think that's really great, and I'm very grateful to those guys. And I would just like to say, in all seriousness, it's a rare thing to be involved with a show or anything really like this that connects in this way with an audience and with critics. And I've been on ones that did not, and you work just as hard as my co-host can speak to. You work just as hard on the ones that don't do this. So to go through all of this stress and effort and hard work, and to come out the other end and have people care about it and have it resonate and have it be something of lasting value, I think is really special. And I'm just really grateful for all that. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. Also, thank you, my agents and managers and lawyer.
And
my co-host, David Mandel.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done.
No, it's really exciting. I've never even been nominated for anything like ever as I've been doing this for 15 years now, and to just connect and win on one of the big three coming right out of the gate is an amazing thing. And I'm really it's still kind of surreal. And I also have to show you, Prop Collector really appreciates this. The fancy carry case they send it in, which is kind of nice. Amazing. And it's got all the foam cut out on the inside. Here, I'll open it up, show you for the YouTube viewers. Look at that. It's all cut out for the thing on the inside. It's amazing. Nice. So it's really appreciate all those little details.
In your collecting world, okay, go down an alternate reality where times get really, really, really tough.
Yeah.
Where does the Golden Globe getting sold in relation to props? Like, what's the order of, like, the last thing I'm going to sell is like my Batman cowl. The second to last is the Terminator jacket. Where's the Golden Globe go in that order when you have to
I just don't
things?
feel like I feel like I will have to do many more impressive things, like more by quantity and also more by quality impressive things, in order for this to mean anything. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I'm just doing like value wise. Like, is it really? The stuff in this room that it's imbued with history and nostalgia.
I think someone would want that thing, though. I mean, I'm just saying. I think someone would pay some good money for it.
I don't know. Like this week.
Well, let's go another way. Here's a question: would you buy? Are you interested in your collection? Are you interested in somebody else's awards? There's a question for you.
No
interest
happened.
At all.
And I don't know whether that's because, like, if I was a finance guy or something, and and this was purely because I loved movies, maybe. But I feel like it's one of those things, because I do this, I just feel like it's weird to, I don't know. It's weird to, if I was a football player, I wouldn't want a Super Bowl ring unless it was mine. It's sort of that sort of thing. I mean,
no, I get that. I definitely was of a mind of, I know
you've dabbled, but it's more of a Star Wars thing specifically for you.
I do have. I mean, and I thought long and hard about it, because I definitely, and look, I think we can certainly be very honest about this. I think my chances at this point of winning an Oscar are relatively low. I don't see it in the future. I think I have a shot perhaps at some other awards, but I don't see Oscar. I mean, they would need to make movies again, first of all.
I would say you better get a movie made next year, Dave, because it might be the last one.
Yeah. So I don't know. So so it was definitely like when an Oscar sort of opportunity came along, it was a very strange thing where it was just like, do I want to own an Oscar? And the answer was, well, no, I want to win one, like that kind of a thing. I've always felt that way. And then a Star Wars one, and I will not divulge the owner, because obviously I'm sure it's in some violation of Academy rules and whatnot. But
ladies and gentlemen, Mr. George
Lucas. Finally. I don't know why he sold it. I guess that museum is running behind budget. But yeah, it was sort of weird and strange and kind of cool, but I wrestled with it, just because it felt like that was the moment I truly was no longer going to bother trying to win an Oscar, I guess. I don't know. It's a very strange thing to say, but I've never been in a big awards collector. I know there are people that love this stuff, that are actually very into it, and Emmys and whatnot. I knew people I had friends that were trying to buy like Emmys, like crappy Emmys from like, well, I shouldn't say crappy Emmys, but like Emmys from like no name people that just like that ended up getting sold, or even like blank ones or that were out there, or ones that like went for like,
Mm.
I don't know, like just, you know, like non like to a, like some graphic thing that you don't really like, no one's name is on it. And the reason for it was they were trying to buy it as a gag gift for friends that had been like nominated like a million times and never won, to be able to go like, here's your Emmy. But that's not really collecting, I guess. But yeah,
All the
I've
friends of
always,
Susan Lucci getting
yeah,
together and
exactly,
making it
and
happen.
buy her a gag sort of like NBC News one, like NBC News graphic one.
That's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. Here's your,
Do you approach
Emmy.
that
Yeah.
like you do autographs, where you try to find one that says "To David" on it?
Exactly. The only I was going to say the one what's new in props thing, and this is a very strange thing to sort of jump to, but I went to this insane. It's not prop related really per se, which this is the worst
Neither is
what's
this
new in
podcast.
props ever.
Yeah.
No, exactly. But I went out here in L.A. Out in Silmar, is this insane collection of this JB. It sounds like a made up name from like The Simpsons, or like the name like that, like the Kramer would use during a scam on Seinfeld. JB Nettercut, something
Oh
like
God,
that.
that's
Has
perfect.
this,
Yeah.
yeah, has this this insane car collection in Silmar, and we went yesterday. My father's in town, and we went. We sought out this museum and took the kids there, and it was this just insane collection of like, you know, Rolls Royce Phantoms and just all these just insane cars starting from like the 1900s forward, just gorgeous car after car after car, things I've never seen before. The Rolls Royces, these just insane stuff. Huge collection though of radiator hood caps, and only here's what and only really one monkey in the guy's collection. I think it's very possible that's who I was bidding against, is JB Nethercut, whatever, and I think I bested him. So
or you were buying
yeah,
unwanted shit out of his collection,
out of like his closet, out of his basement. But either way, worth going to this museum. I'll put up a couple of pictures of it, but
fantastic.
very light on the monkey radiator caps, and I felt very, very proud. Yeah.
I have a couple questions. Yeah. Is that monkey one that you had, or no?
No, it was one I'd never seen before that I would love to acquire.
Did you covet it?
I did. I definitely did. If the Nutter Cuts are listening, I'm very interested. They had one. Like there was one with like a cobra as the hood ornament. That was like this cool like 1920s car, and one with a guy with an arrow. That there were these like award-winning car. Anyway, just insane looking stuff. Everything looked like out of Sunset Boulevard is what it looked like. It was, you know, it was like great. All those kinds of like cars. Yeah.
I wonder, I never really thought about this before, but now I'm thinking about it. This must go back to like seafaring days, right? Like that was the
I think so. But also, you know, you got to remember, like, I think, you know, even specifically how, I guess I'll say, rarer cars were at the time, and so it was a much bigger to do. But you're right. I think the notion of something at the, what is that, the bow, or the, I guess that's the bow, right? Like the thing on the front, but just the prow. Okay. Yeah. But not the stern. I know that. No. But anyway, really, really interesting and cool, but not a lot of monkey ones. So I felt very good about my collection. So yeah,
proud. Well, as you should. Are you? I mean, we've dabbled around this, but like I'm a big car guy myself. But are you? Did you just go out there?
I am not. This was.
Yeah,
I like looking at them, but it was definitely an interesting thing. Unlike a lot of like museums or like collections I go visit, it was like really interesting to see. If you gave me one for free, I don't think I want it. You know what I mean? Like if you said, take one of these Rolls Royces home, like I wouldn't know what to do with it. It was fabulous to see, really interesting to look at. I'm good. You know what I mean? And when I look at them, I don't really care what engine's in them or anything like that. Like I just like, they're pretty, you know, it's like, that's my attraction to them. Like, oh, that's pretty, on to the next one. But no interest at all.
Yeah.
Barely. Well, I'm barely aware of the car I drive, let alone like what another car is. So
I get
not a collecting area for me. And by the way, not particularly interested in movie cars, just to go, which is I think a show we are going to do one of these days.
Good way to set it up.
Or wouldn't that be a great segue? And speaking of movie cars, ladies and gentlemen, our old friend Mr. Tom Spina. How's that? Or did you have a better segue?
I was going to do this whole thing about how owning one of those Rolls Royces would be a big responsibility because you'd have to
a lot of restoration. And speaking of restoration and conservation, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Spina.
And look after it, Tom Spina.
Is that how we were going to get to it? Car restoration and conservation?
Fantastic.
No,
this is
Tom,
the decadence
welcome.
of season 5, everybody.
If anyone is still listening, Tom's here. Hey, Tom, how are you? But we did think we would bring you on today to really dive deep into conservation.
Yes,
which I think is something of concern to a lot of collectors. Obviously, certainly your client base, but also, I think Ryan and I and the collectors we talk to, I think it's something you see on all levels of collection. I think you see it with the the high end guys and the low end guys. Of just I'll just simply say, let's start with the simplest version, which is like how we take care of our stuff, but then also what do we do when there are issues? And obviously that's your livelihood in some ways, yes, or at least half your livelihood, but also high.
Also hi.
And also, who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl? Super Bowl prediction.
I honestly, I don't even know who's in it. I assume Philly because you said something. I think you said the word Eagles. So
yes,
okay.
You're rooting for the Chiefs, Tom. Everybody's rooting for the Chiefs.
There's a greater chance.
Is everyone rooting for the Chiefs?
We'll be watching the Kitten Bowl or something upstairs. If but no, I think it's interesting what you say there, Dave, because it really is like it's sort of the responsibility that comes with collecting that, when you start, it's like with the precious cars, which, I'm not the movie Cars to the Stars grease monkey, wheel out with my rag. Well, there's your problem, but it is, you have things that have historical importance and value to them. And there's a certain level of responsibility that comes with that and making sure that, you're a good steward for the stuff while you have it. And then also just for your own sake, while you have this stuff, you don't want to, you want to maintain its value. You want to maintain its integrity and all of that stuff.
Because by the way, though, you could have I'll simply say some sort of a foam piece that is not necessarily of historical value, that just is something you like. I remember, just to jump into it, I remember those pieces, I believe, from Batman Returns. So the second Batman, there were those discs that he shot out. Do you remember those pieces, those discs that the Batmobile shot out? Yeah. And I know people that had those things. Maybe we've even talked about them on the show. And those things, if they were not properly taken care of on the A side, you went to go get yours one day and you opened up the box and it was just like it. I did a commercial parody on Saturday Night Live a million years ago that was called Nerf Crotch Bat. And at the end of Nerf Crotch Bat, there was an ad for other Nerf products. And one of the products was Nerf. And it was just a sort of amoeba shaped pile of colored Nerf. And that's basically Nerf was what those bat discs turned into. They just kind of turned into I don't know what to call it, a puddle of sludge, for lack of a better word.
It's like when you go and look at your the trash compactor in your Kenner Death Star playset 25 years later.
Well, all those foam pieces have become like dusty, brittle. Yep, exactly. Or mushed together. Yep, exactly.
It's impressive to me. There's a variety of materials that we encounter on this stuff. And they each kind of have their own tricks. They each have their own tendencies. There's some that get sticky. There's some that melt. There's some that get dry. There's some that crumble. And then there's even ones that just will always stay in a bad shape if you don't have them in the right shape.
Right.
There's a lot of that kind of thing where you get people who will pull an old slip rubber mask, an old Don Post mask, or your basic rubber Halloween type mask that they folded in half and put in a drawer someday or in a box, and they go to take it out and it's just solid and in that position, and that's just it now. And that's something that we do a lot of, and I think even one of the things we get a ton of these days, because there's so much auction activity now, even, I don't know, do you guys think even compared to, 10 years ago, does it just feel like every month there's some new big auction that you've got to be paying attention to, or is it just me? It feels like so much more.
It definitely feels like, obviously, I think it's a combination of, what's the word I'm looking for? So profiles joining with heritage, and that became a bigger thing. Obviously, Prop Store now with 2 big auctions, but then also they're now, just ongoing smaller auctions and whatnot. Julian's coming into, was always in the space, but being, I think, more aggressive. But I think certainly, what's the word? The word is out on, there's money, there's gold in Demdare Hills. And so you are just randomly seeing props in lots of auctions just in general. So it may not be the full on, but it does feel like stuff is popping up all the time to kind of take a look at. And obviously on any given day, it's often just, paperwork or something smaller, but these pieces are popping up. I definitely want to get into, and I do think you bring up an incredible point, like with those masks, which is to say, I think displaying something is an element of conservation. I want to get to that. We're going to build to that as an idea. But let's just dive backwards for a second. When you're talking about materials, are you seeing those materials? Is it look, let's start with a basic point. When the prop makers or whoever was fabricating these things for production, their only goal is basically for it to survive production. They were not making these things, and very cruelly, they were not thinking about us as collectors. That was not on their mind, obviously. It just wasn't their main point. They were trying to get something that obviously looks good on camera, does whatever it needs to accomplish, and obviously works.
And lasts until the director says,
yes, exactly. Cut, and now let's put it in the garbage or something of that nature. So with that in mind, my first question is there a sense that I guess I'll say and I know there's not just one industry, but did the industry move from material to material to material? Like, do you see like the material that you find that gets sticky? Do you find like that was like in a 5-year period in the 80s, and then they moved on to something else? Or on any given day, are people just still using random things? Because I do feel like there was an evolution towards, now these days, obviously you see a lot of resin, just for example. I'm just wondering, is there a and feel free to get as chemically complicated as you like in your answer. We're going to do some equations, because I'm going to get I'm going
to wheel in a whiteboard.
My wife often teases me. I'm very proud of my AP score in chemistry. I did really well. So, I'm happy to.
I always did better in biology.
Really?
Back then,
I would have thought you were a
reason.
chemical guy. Okay.
The Joker also had an aptitude in chemistry, Dave.
Yes.
Just saying. Just saying.
Ryan's chemistry is in a little glass that he brings up from off screen every once in a while at this point. It's evil.
That's right.
A
beaker
and currently going on in my bloodstream.
That's right. Yeah, it is interesting. There has definitely been a series of shifts in terms of materials. And there are moments in time in the industry where you see the entrance of certain things, whether that's new materials for making molds that allow you to cast different materials, new casting materials, the mold being the negative, the casting being the final part.
Sure.
The demands of the materials, I think, in a lot of cases, when you get into, say, superhero costumes, those demands have really increased between when you say, you look at 89 Batman, you have really the first definitive foam rubber suit, and it's not really a full foam suit. It's actually very similar to what they did in Aliens, where it's an undersuit that's fabric and you've got foam elements on top of that.
Kind of just
so that most of the
onto it,
flexibility comes from the negative space between the foam, which is actually good for the conservation of the piece, and it puts a lot less wear and tear on it.
Because the foam itself wasn't specifically bending parts.
Exactly. Now, that
funny,
said, those bat suits took a beating.
I just watched my 7-year-old is getting very into dad's movies and is very curious about them. So I just snuck her in and did Batman '89 with her, which was fascinating. to watch, and I watched it in 4K, and I'd seen the 4K before, but I guess I don't know, a better TV now. But when the famous scene in the Flugenheim Museum when he rescues Vicky Vale with the gauntlet, where does he get all those wonderful toys? When he puts his arm up to ski out, the whole thing is torn underneath his arm, and I had never noticed it before, and I guess you wouldn't see it on VHS, but it's amazing.
And so they've shifted a lot on the superhero suits to these new layered fabrics and things like that, and you get stuff with even with textures and 3D printed elements and all of this fun stuff on top of it. But they've pulled away from foam latex in a lot of cases just for durability, just so that, when you put the arm up, it doesn't necessarily tear. And it's also a more tactical look, maybe. That's just, I think there's also, just an aesthetic shift.
But for example, on those Spider-Man suits, as we jump around on these things, especially on the original 3, the Tobey Maguire movies,
right.
Those were like a fabric, but then they had the webbing on it, whatever. Yeah. And it seemed like, because I owned one briefly, and you actually did a really lovely, and by the way, this now brings us back to like displays as conservation. Yeah. Those the webbing would sort of break in places, but also, despite it being fabric, if you sort of stretch the fabric too much in any given direction, it would still tear. I guess it wasn't layered enough. So it was a couple of things going on. Number one was putting it on a statue or putting it on a form so that it would kind of stay kind of full and complete, the shape you wanted, but nothing so complicated that it would cause stress that would further tear the material. Because I've seen some that are displayed very sort of like Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man, whatever. Yeah. And my understanding is those tear all the time because you're basically forcing, arms and legs bending. Right. And, the one we went for, which I no longer own, it's not in my collection, but, Tom, not because of the display. The display was lovely. I just sort of got tired of that movie.
That's why you got such a tidy fee for it, Dave.
I know where it ended up. Yeah. It's among friends. Yep. It's in a great collection.
It's a fine piece. I don't know. It's funny. Sorry, this is a completely different thing. I don't know if this bothers you guys at all. And I know with Batman, obviously, Ryan, you have a lot of Batman stuff, and they've made these other Batman movies, so I don't think that's true with Batman. But I don't know, somehow, when they started not making Tobey Maguire like Spider-Man movies, even though I very much enjoy the recent Spider-Man movies actually a lot, I don't know, I was less interested in the Tobey Maguire one, that they sort of, I don't know, they didn't end on a strong note, and I don't know, maybe this is my own insanity. It's a rule that, I don't know, I break all the time, but it's like, it doesn't bother me with Batman. I would still be interested in Batman. It doesn't bother me with Christopher Reeve's Superman, but a lot of other things it does bother me. I don't know, like these sort of like that those old movies don't count. I don't know. It hits me with comic art as well, like some stories that I love that are now not as important. I don't know. Does that hit you guys ever or not? Not so much.
It gets me. It's interesting because I think there's always the thing that folks say. It's like you get upset, like you get nerd upset because they're remaking a classic movie or something, and people are like, "Well, the original's still around. It's not going to take away from that." But I definitely get sometimes it does kind of take away, and maybe it took away because the new ones are good. And maybe if the new ones were terrible. Yeah. Then it's like there's plenty of repeats that come out, and the original is still great.
Was Spidey 3, which also was not exactly the best, and I think that was part of it. Even though the differences between a Spidey 3 and a Spidey 2 costume aren't that great from the Tobey Maguire ones, and I think that was part of it as well. But anyway, to sum it all up, we ended up doing a sort of, if you can remember, a sort of a Steve Ditko from the original creator of Spider-Man, Marvel Comics, kind of a pose that I pulled from the comics. It was sort of a simple, very forceful pose, like with hands at the side. That kind of from a couple of famous sort of pieces that he'd drawn. And again, very simple, but I thought there was a sort of an elegance and a little heroic majesty to it. But obviously it was picked to not stress the costume out. And that was a big part of it.
Absolutely. That's always the number one concern that we bring up with folks, because often we get the like, oh, can you put him in the position of a roundhouse kick or whatever, and it's just like, well, fabric over time in a stressed position will give in to that stress, just as foam would, just as anything else would. So for us, it's like, how do we find that neutral pose, but a heroic neutral if it's a hero, or a villainous neutral if it's a villain? How do you find something that imbues a little sense of the character or a little sense of the actor in a lot of cases, but still maintains the integrity of the costume and doesn't put undue stress on it? And the same goes for masks. Sometimes you'll have something where someone says, oh, I've got this mask, we want to conserve it, but I want him with his mouth open and his eyebrows down and everything bugged out. And it's just like, well, we can do that, but then in a couple of years, the where that mouth is stressed and all that stretching, he's going to start to split like the Joker.
Well, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just to make a point. Let's jump in. Another piece you did for me, which again there was an element of restoration because of the damage, but it was also about the conservation of it, which was, do you remember the Ugnaught masks?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
These were found a couple of years ago. I don't actually know who found them.
2004.
Okay. Do you know the story of where those came from? Okay, please tell us. Yeah.
So there was this little kid named Brandon Allinger. Now, I don't know whatever happened to him, but that kid
died at sea. Isn't that weird? He died at sea. It's strange. Yeah.
The sea was angry that day, my friends.
Murdered by Ugnaughts.
That was something that came out of the Stuart Freeborn.
Those were Freeborn. I didn't remember that. Okay, that makes sense then.
He worked
I don't know why I thought it was something else. Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen and those guys, because it was some of the first pieces to come through that. And Brandon had picked up, I think it was 4 of them, that all were in a state. And
I mean, they were flat, they were torn, they were
and
mush.
The ones that weren't totally flat were stuffed with old newspapers, which, from a conservative's point of view, absorbent, acidic newspaper print, not the best thing to put inside of a foam piece. If you want to suck the moisture out of something, that's the way to do it.
Hang on, I have to go fix my Batman. I'll be right back.
Yeah, it's just. But that was one of those things where once the newspaper was out of them, once they were in a little better shape, once we could really examine what was going on, the condition wasn't as bad as they looked.
Oh.
And it's like all of these other things, if I've told this on the last time I was on, I mean, to me, restoration is, pushing the boulder up the hill. But at some point, you push it up and you get to the crest of the hill, and then it just kind of runs down on you, and you just, you're just moving and flying. And with those, going up the hill was literally just getting them apart and unstuck and, seeing what you had to work with. And then once you know what you have to work with, it's not that far to the crest of the hill to piece it back together. The puzzle pieces were mostly there. On the one you had, I think there was only one little area, if I remember right.
Mine wasn't terrible. But really, to me, what has made it work and why it has lasted, forgetting about the repair, which again we can put in the restoration side, but is really the fact that by putting it on a form, by basically kind of, forgive me, locking it in on a form, and again we'll put pictures up, it really has. It looks exactly the same today as the day I got it from you, which at this point is a while. I mean, I feel like
almost 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that is the beauty, I think, in this case. And again, less of a restoration, more of the conservation aspect by putting it on the right form, having it, for lack of a better word, professionally mounted. It is supported and not necessarily preserved, but it is preserved in a way, because the stress is off of it. It's in the shape it needs to be, and it lives as it does. And no, I didn't go, I want his mouth wide open or anything of that nature. We just kind of let it be.
Heroic
And
Ugnaught pose.
that's to the work of it in a wonderful way. Yeah, a heroic Ugnaught.
Heroic
Mine is,
Ugnaught.
Have there
Everyone
been any
is doing
Ugnaught Jedis? Write us in. Any Ugnaught Jedis? I have yet to see that
that's a
in
good
the,
there
in the
has to be at
extended
this time,
universe.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's
I feel
Yaddle,
like-
then there can be Ugnaught Jedi.
Right. It'll be. I'm sure
my
it's the
Ugnaught
back-
is doing a roundhouse kick, Dave. So.
Well,
Yeah, but
for
your
a long
Ugnaught
time-
likes to show off his penis, like his pants tore,
He does.
and that's on purpose. Yeah,
He does.
that's
Oh,
it's
Ugnaught, his little tusks.
He's
I
very
think-
gifted for a tiny Ugnaught.
Well, something
alien.
that people don't know about Ugnaughts, if you're a fan
Proportional.
of the extended universe, is they have 4 penises. So that's interesting. Yeah, if you're like a real Star Wars nerd, you know they have 4 penises. So yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, here to tell us about the 4 penises, Mr. George.
Mr.
That's right. Oh goodness. Yeah. To me, you know what? It's you said an interesting thing. It's not preservation. In a way, it is.
Sure.
Conservation and preservation are almost.
No, I know. I'm
synonyms.
trying to
But
restoration,
there is
preservation, conservation. Lots of
Yeah.
Sean words.
So it's
yeah.
like to me, it's kind of the thing we often say is slowing the hands of time. It's like these are natural materials. We never want to say like, oh, this will be perfectly preserved forever because look, even the best you can do on some of these pieces, if they're not stored right, if they're exposed to sunlight, heat, whatever, you never know what nature's gonna bring and how they're stored and whatever. But we can definitely put them in the best position to last as long as possible. And a big part of that, like you said, get it on a form that fits. We do a lot of stuff. We did lately it's become really interesting because now we're actually bringing scanning and 3D print technology into stuff. So, we've had stuff where we would scan, the inside of a piece to help make a form that would fit in there.
Oh, so to actually get the full-on shape or
like
the
that
contours
shape,
of whatever, a nose
or
or a cheek or whatever.
Exactly. Because there are places on a head like that where there's more stress than others. And sometimes we'll do fabric patching and we'll do backing on the underside where it's like, okay, in the place you can't see it, we're going to reinforce this. Similar to how, not that these materials, we're not fiberglassing these things, but similar to the way you would lay up fiberglass or paper mache, but in an archival fashion. And it's similar to how they do archival forms for things with buckram and things like that, where they'll make.
And it really is about stress points. I mean, it's really trying to find those spots.
Where is gravity going to pull on
Right.
this?
Where is it hanging? Where is it pulling? Where is it resting? That maybe if you can reinforce or sort of bulwark it. Yes.
And sometimes it's even as simple as, hey, if I have this head this way, especially with this beak, if I tilt it back, all of a sudden the gravity isn't pulling that straight down anymore. It's going to start pulling it back, and back it's supported by the rest of the face. So we will, a lot of times, you'll see our custom displays, the head is tilted back. And that's when we're dealing with something we think is particularly fragile or can't be supported another way, and it needs that additional support. We've done stuff too lately where we'll have the actor's life cast and we'll 3D scan that and print elements of it or scale it up or down to better fit inside the piece, because sometimes these pieces will rather shrink over time. So you couldn't just put a life cast in there, especially since a lot of the times, we don't want to put plaster in there or things like that. So what we'll do is use archival safe plastics to vac form over the life cast. And then
so you're almost making your own life cast, whether it's a different size, but a different material.
Now you're a millimeter
the
bigger.
The different material is going to be safer for whatever, a mask of some sort to sit on. Gotcha.
Yeah, or it will better interact. So sometimes, in the case of like Keaton Batman, we have a full head life cast of Michael Keaton that we use a lot of times on those. But those masks have a narrow neck. It looks wide. You got the whole bat turn thing. But on the inside, it's fit to his neck. Well, his neck is smaller than his head. How do you get a head in through a small neck on a fragile foam mask that will fall to pieces if you stress it? So we'll puzzle core those castings. So we'll pull a thin resin casting out. We'll cut that into pieces, set it up with magnets and other connectors, and then feed it through the neck little by little to fill out the head.
Wow.
And then sometimes also introduce things like layers of batting.
Women think it's hard to give birth.
That's right.
I mean, this is so much more complicated. Yes.
As we were talking about earlier, Dave, the whining.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that up, just for you. You can have that statement, and I'll, we're here to support you, whatever comes from it.
Ladies and gentlemen, here to back me up on that point, Mr. George.
That's right. But yeah, these are just some of the steps you take just in terms of that form. And then the same thing applies to when you're dealing with a costume. The Spider-Man costume is such a great example because here you have, this is like the ultimate things when someone reads the list of what they need for something. These are the ones like, ooh, it's like, okay, I've got a costume that is skin tight spandex. Okay, right there, you now know your mannequin has to be to the millimeter perfect for that actor's size and has to be smooth as glass everywhere. Otherwise, it's going to show through. It also has foam latex webbing on it in places that will crumble if you stretch it. Okay?
Yeah, so just getting it on the mannequin, getting it onto the form itself.
Correct. When it was brand new, the actor could squish and stretch it and whatever. And then the third thing is, how did Toby put that costume on? Well, I'm glad you didn't ask. On the back of that suit, at the belt line, is a small U-shaped hidden zipper that is maybe like this big. And he would have unzipped that, put the legs in, and then dove in head first to the top of it. A mannequin can't do any of those things. So now we've got a puzzle core arm mannequin, basically puzzle piece this thing into the body in a way that doesn't overstress stuff. And only once we've got that body right and everything fits and looks good, then do we start restoring or conserving, depending on the approach, any of the foam pieces. That's always the final step, because otherwise any of the work we do would just get undone as we did fittings and stuff.
Collectors got kind of lucky because that, you see it back there. That is a Tom Spina Batman bust restoration display, all of it done by Tom Spina Designs beautifully. That's now about 5 years old and still looks just as good as the day I got it. So it's doing its job. But that Keaton sort of bust form was thanks to collectors, right? Having access to the thing from the film. So there was already, and this is, even 5 years ago, really before 3D printing became a thing that was accessible to, to people like us. We were just sort of, as collectors, lucky that thing was out there, because it gave a base thing to, put into those cowls when they came around.
Yeah. And then, that's where we take something like that and then modify it to work better for this. And we also built up the whole shoulder section to fit and support that as well. And it really is, it is, you're right. It is 100% thanks to collectors going, hey, this is neat. Hey, this is part of the production. Hey, this is a connection to my favorite actor. Just the fact that so many of these live casts are out there. William Forsh is somebody that we hit on all the time for that kind of thing. And
was that a thing with the Batman ones, that within the Batman production, though, they also had multiple castings that they themselves were kind of using them to not necessarily make the mask, but they were almost like storing their masks on those things?
All the time for that. Yeah.
And that people knew enough to, I don't just want that mask, but I want it on the thing it's on, as opposed to, I'll just take the mask, you keep that heavy thing.
Yeah. Well, and and
they were usually soft foam, by the way, for those. They were soft poly foam, and which is nice, because when we do get one of those, you can sometimes get in and carve out the center of it and crumple it to get it out if we're replacing it.
And then re-inflate it, so to speak.
Yeah. But it is one of those things where the and I'm sorry, the train has gone off the tracks because Ryan was about to say something and I totally interrupted him.
No, I was just going to say, now out there also, while you regather your thoughts, Tom.
Yeah.
Also, sorry to derail you, but
no, fine.
The mold masters are also out there now too, where they actually the sculpts that they used to actually make the cowl, which is Keaton's face. And I don't actually, the interesting question, because it's Keaton's. It's basically an interior full bat cowl. So is that better? Would that be a better thing to build your display on, because it has the ears and also has the shape of the bib and everything on it, and also Keaton's face?
It depends a little on the condition of the piece we get. One, because of shrinkage, That's something where we're always adjusting for as we do it. But you could certainly start with that and come in, or you could scan it and run it, scaled down a few percent. In terms of the ears, it depends. Some of the suits already have the ear supports in them. Some of them have thicker and thinner foam in the ears. I don't know if that's something that may just be a movie to movie thing and not necessarily a suit to suit thing. But yeah, that would certainly be a thing that would be amazing to work with in this case.
They had those in a couple of the recent auctions.
Yes,
there were a couple of those around.
Those were, I mean, they are just neat. I mean, they're
cool.
Are cool looking. Yeah, they're just really cool looking unto themselves. I was going to go over your right shoulder a second is that Duros back there
it
hanging
is,
over
actually.
Your shoulder. And I was curious, and obviously that was a mask that's now on a form. But I was curious about the hands, to talk about the hands for a second.
So
what are you doing there? Because obviously, we're talking about gravity and support and whatnot, and those weren't hands in the movie. Of those who remember the little movie called Star Wars, they weren't necessarily fully working hands. They were just sort of more like
noodly.
they were just kind of mask hands. So on the one hand, perhaps they didn't bend as much and crack whatnot, but again, you're talking about something with a more of an intricate structure. And what are you doing with something like that to kind of preserve, protect, but in this case, again, conserve, however we're going to talk about it.
Well, and obviously my ploy worked, because the last time you wouldn't let me mention Cantina on the show, and I was just like, I'm just going to put it behind me.
Eventually,
they won't be able to resist.
We're going to have you on enough time. So
No, so what's nice is I kind of take two approaches with hands, and the Plutonian over my other shoulder has them, and there's a Cantina band guy down there.
Oh yeah,
I don't know how because when you guys are up on mine, I'm just getting the center. But
no, we got the hands there, and I have a Cantina and hands guide. I have hands as well in my Cantina, and those hands, at least on mine, those are very thick and sturdy. Like they just almost seemed like there was no bend to them. Like they just were just kind of.
And that varies from piece to piece. So when you're making a slip latex piece, that's what those are made out of. It's your basic rubber mask material. That is something that's poured into a porous plaster mold. They sculpt it in clay. They make a plaster negative. You pour the liquid latex into that negative, and you leave it for a bit, and you dump it out. And whatever got absorbed and sticks to the edges, that becomes either your mask or your pair of hands. It dries out, and you pull it out. Depending how long you leave it there, depending how dry the material was when you poured it in, depending how thick the latex was material-wise, you can have something that goes from tissue paper thin to 3/4 of an inch thick. Like I've seen stuff cast in slip latex that's like a helmet. And the good thing is on the Cantina band heads, because Doug Beswick thought ahead on how big that was going to be, and I think the Given over there has this too. He actually used lace inside the latex, almost like you would fiberglass reinforcement on something. And so the shape on that is pretty good. But on all the masks behind me, but in particular these three, they are all on conservation forms. The heads are specifically made inside out of archival materials and puzzle pieced in there so that they're going to support it over time. The most important thing on a mask like that is actually bib support, because the bib is pretty big and heavy. The lower half of the head is pretty heavy. You could put something that just hits at the top of the head, but if you didn't support that bib, all of that weight comes down. If you get a little support on the bib,
you almost have to worry about neck tearing is almost the bigger
and
problem.
And the Duros actually came to me with neck tearing in sort of the gill area. He's got a lot of these fine wrinkles there, and those had separated. Maria at the shop actually pieced those together. No filling in. It's not, they weren't restored. It was literally
just split.
Pieced together. They went edge to edge, and we patched it from the underside, reinforced that whole neck area with fabric patching so it holds up better over time. And then almost the way you would do like a negative pressure mask when you're inside, like a paint studio or like you're doing automotive work. I like to put a tiny bit of negative pressure on the bib. A tiny bit, if the bib is supposed to be here, I'll go a millimeter or two higher just to make sure that neck over time doesn't have stress on it. And just keeping, a really nice bib support, something that keeps all the weight in place, the neck in place. Then you got things holding the nose, sometimes reinforcement inside there in key places. And it really, some of these I've had, some of them I've had a real long time. These guys probably, almost 20 years now. And those guys, 10 or so, depending.
Really, I'm looping you back to those Duros hands.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything under those Duros hands? Is anything
are
going
those
on
Here's
down
what's
here?
interesting.
They're gloves, right?
They are, yeah. And
okay.
and if you look at the hands on the Cantina band guy and the Plutonian guy, they are vertical.
Right.
99% of the time, I recommend people go vertical with their hand displays. It keeps the pressure off, it keeps gravity at bay, and it is just a more comfortable way to display them. I definitely always recommend, just your basic open hand pose, as close as we can get to however they were sculpted. If they were sculpted like this, then I would want to keep that pose. But if they were sculpted open, which is 90% of hands are sculpted on a flat life cast of a hand like that. So that's what we go for there. We fill them with things like archival safe materials, polyester batting, aluminum wire armature, stuff like that. Sometimes we'll actually make a rigid form that fits it. Sometimes it's not polyurethane, polyethylene, where you're ethafoam. Yeah. Sometimes we do ethafoam and things like that for the wrists. I like to display them vertically. However, in the case of the Duros, there's that great photo in the Star Wars Chronicles of the Duros mask with the two hands kind of almost like he's choking himself or whatever, a little bit in front of the mask. To me, that was such an iconic image. So what we did is the same supports for those hands, but they actually have I think it's a 3/8 inch aluminum rod coming out the back and going down so that they peg in. And there's wire and batting and everything running through each finger on it. So they are supported over time. The underside doesn't have a support right now. I'm keeping an eye on them. They still feel great. If anything looks troubling there, I'm going to swap those to vertical. But for myself, it was just one of these like, okay, it's a little bit of a risk. It's such an iconic look to me, though, that I said,
cool.
this will be my flex, and if anybody could take care of it, I can. So I'll keep an eye on it.
Dave, do you have a Duros?
But obviously, really quickly, I don't have a Duros. I have Mos Espa, which Tom also worked on. And most recently, a lot of the work we were doing on it was the neck. It was on the previous pre-Tom. What's the word I'm looking for? The previous pre-Tom. Like putting it on form was basically sort of neck free, and the neck was sort of hanging. And over time, I started to notice there was a combination of it seemed like it was getting dry. I guess I don't know if that's proper terminology. Yeah. It seemed like it was drying out and verging into brittle and a little bit of cracking, but in particular at the neck area. And so I kind of kicked it to Tom with a combination of let's stop it and heal it where we can, but clearly more importantly, it just needed a new form. And it basically everything he was describing about neck support is basically what we did to Mos Espa and kind of cleaned it up in a good way.
Yeah, it was in such good shape. But what's nice about that piece is, and this is a little unique to the way Stuart put a lot of those together. You had elements on him that were rigid materials. You had elements on him that were slip latex and elements that were foam latex. And the neck area was the foam latex on top of all of that. So not only was it dangling and unsupported, but it was also probably the most at-risk material out of all of these. And so,
and in a strange way, is it a heavier material so that it's almost heaviest and pulling where it's pulling down?
No, it's actually it's
light.
Okay. It's pretty light, but it is...
But gravity is still gravity.
Gravity is still gravity, and it is the most prone to becoming brittle and fragile, at least more so than thick cast slip latex. Now, when you get into things like really thin slip latex, we did a Back to the Future jacket that we did a conservation on. Back to the Future 2, you know, the automatic
jacket.
adjusting sleeves jacket. So everybody needs to see my hands up close there.
Just display them correctly, Tom.
That's right. Sorry. Here we go.
Thank
you. That was very, very thin latex in areas, and that got to be like potato chip sort of material. You know, when you have really thin foam latex, it just kind of crumbles away. Really thin slip latex will stick around, but it can get so brittle. Another thing that can sometimes happen with certain types of slip latex or slip latex that's been affected a certain way, lots of skin oil and things like that. Sometimes slip latex can start to melt almost from the inside out. But that on that particular Back to the Future jacket, that was a really challenging piece to puzzle piece back together. We really only bridged a few gaps on that. For the most part, everything that is there was there. But getting that in a way that it would be supported on the inside, supported on the outside as well, because of how fragile that was. We actually made, if you go to the tomspinadesigns.com site, you can search Back to the Future. I'm sure this will come up along with a bunch of other BTTF stuff. But we actually made like this sort of semicircle of soft material with a carved out cradle that fit the jacket, and it sunk into it just perfectly. Because if we went to put that in a box and it moved at all, it was going to crack. And so sometimes your support is from the inside, sometimes the support is from the outside, or in this case, it was actually a mix of both. And it was a really, really challenging piece to repair, but then also, and to conserve, but a really challenging piece even to ship after that. And that becomes the other part of the equation. I mean, Dave, you know, I know we've done this in the past, and I know we now have a number of places that we use that do, you know, door-to-door type shipments where they will pick up a piece, and there's every level from, you know, guy in a van takes it and drives it to you in you know, I won't say Philadelphia because I don't want to trigger Ryan, but there's
no one with any taste living there, Tom.
It's too late. But and then it goes on the other extreme to, you know,
that's where a lot of your
prequel
collectors are living in Philadelphia.
Oh. There you go.
But yeah, refrigerated truck
edition
with
only scenes from the special editions.
You know,
Sorry, Tom.
anyway. But yes, you know, wide range of delivery options for this stuff. And sometimes it's an important consideration.
To the destination, right? Yeah. Back to the It's funny. Back to the Future.
Sorry. Oh, were you going to ask about the sneakers? Was that where you were going?
Yeah.
With
Well,
this?
I was going to ask.
Was there on my mind? Yeah.
Was there a materials problem on Back to the Future? Because the sneakers have been a disaster too. The Nikes, right?
Yeah.
But again, they weren't making them for us. They were not thinking about the collector's market. They worked in the movie, right? They work in the movie. Yeah.
You know, here's something really interesting. We have had. So we've handled a lot of Back to the Future sneakers, Back to the Future 2 sneakers. We've handled a lot of Batman and Batman Returns sneakers that have the same issues with the soles. So there's something in the material they were using for soles of sneakers back then.
In the Nikes back then.
Yeah. And then also the shin armor on a lot of the Batman Returns armor, and maybe even the first movie, but whatever that material is on the shins, it's not the same foam latex they used on the rest of the suit. It's a different material that aggressively cracks and crumbles. It's a very, very weird material to work with, and it's why a lot of the full suits out there have replica shin armor.
Interesting.
And then another one.
But the returns, sorry, Tom, the returns cowls were worse, right? Conservation wise than the 89 cowls, right? Because there are fewer returns cowls out there surviving.
What's interesting, we've had a couple of them, but one of the things that makes it so challenging to make broad statements is that the materials, even from within the same production, can vary. Because, you know, maybe the mix is different one day. Maybe they whipped it longer one day. There's more air in it.
Or they're learning as they go along.
Maybe they didn't clean it as well after they've pulled it out of the mold. You know, and then it's also a question of, okay, that's during production. Now we've had 30 years. what's happened to it in that time.
Right.
You
And
know,
by
did
the way,
someone
not
store it
just
in a
what's
hot
happened,
attic,
where was it kept? I mean, that's the other
Yeah.
piece of it.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. Also, how thick was the material? You know, on the first movie, those cowls do tend to be a little thicker. Thicker material on foam latex tends to hold up better, but it's not a hard and fast rule because, again, all of those other variables that come into play. But it's always a unique challenge. We had every once in a while we'll get someone who calls us up. And Katie was on the phone with someone the other day, and Christine said, you know, this is the person who calls up the mechanic and says, my engine is going, you know, I'm going to need to see it. It's just, sometimes there's only so much you can diagnose on the phone.
I can send you some photos, but you need to send it. Yeah.
And sometimes we can diagnose via photos. Sometimes it's, you know, well, we think we can help this. If you're willing to pay to get it to us and to pay for, you know, a little bit of time for us to examine it and pack it back up and send it back. If you don't want to do the work, fine. Or if you are somewhat local and you want to drive it here or whatever, you know, there's more than a few times where we don't really say what we can do on something until we get it. And honestly, you know, both of you have done stuff with us. Anytime we give an estimate, you probably have always seen it's always just subject to in-person inspection on arrival.
Have you ever been sent anything where you did unfortunately have to just say, look, man, I'm so sorry. This is gone. I mean, like I can redo it, but it's like creating it from scratch. It's like, this is gone. This is just, you waited too long or whatever.
I don't want to name names. We've definitely had it a couple of times. We've definitely had a couple of things where...
Can you name a piece that maybe isn't too specific, or it's too specific? Okay, yeah.
It'd probably be a little too specific, but
Gotcha.
We've had some things where they've come in and, you know, pretty quickly the path forward changed, where it started out like, oh, I've got these pieces from such and such and I want to make a full costume. And we get them and we say, well, we can take these flattened pieces and turn them into a nice little wall display that showcases the pieces you have as artifacts of what's left of that costume, but making it into the costume is more than we'd be comfortable doing because of the reasons you're talking about.
No, I wondered, I was honestly more of just like, I'm sending you my bat disc
Of
from
not
Batman
penis.
Returns that, you know,
and
my
we
four,
get it, and we're just like,
and you're just like, I'm sorry, man. This is just like, I know it's vaguely holding its shape, but it's
very
liquefied
few times.
or
Usually
whatever.
we wind up trying to take a creative approach and say like, okay, if we can't restore this, can we conserve it or display it in some way that at least gives it some context and at least maintains what's there? There have actually the one sort of shift from that would be where we'd have someone who would bring something to us. We say we can do this much with it, and then throughout the process, they just keep trying to push it further on us than we want to go.
Sure.
And we've had a few of those where we've just sort of been like, well, this is as far as we're comfortable with. We're going to send it back to you. Thank you so much. You know, it's like, you know, the thing for us is we just never want to put the piece at risk, and we don't want to push further than we're comfortable with. I mean, that's there is a level of responsibility that comes with owning these things, and there's an even bigger level of responsibility that comes from taking money to conserve these things.
Sure. It sounds like, and again, you're not looking to put you on the spot, it sounds like, though, you're talking about these sort of specific things where it sounds like people are trying to sort of turn what they have into something else, perhaps for resale value, more so than conservation, or at least trying to turn it into something or make it seem, how does one say it, better than it is, which is not,
there's definitely been times where, and this we've told people no outright, like they haven't even come in. I'm trying to think of, I don't have a specific example, but I think I could probably the closest sort of analog would be, so Starship Troopers, they had like A and B versions of the same type of props where you'd have an A helmet and a B helmet because they had so many characters out there. You know, if someone were to come to us with a B helmet and say, hey, can you put the metal things on here and add that and put the new liner in and make this an A, that's something we're not going to do because that's it just borders on fraud.
Right.
We would want to make this the best bee helmet it could be. We would want to, if you want to restore it, we'll restore it to the level that it looked at the time of filming. If you want to conserve it, we will keep it in as best condition as it is right now and try to maintain that. But yeah, we're not going to turn it into the A version. That starts to feel like we're an accomplice to something.
No, I get that. No, you're getting into what, but that definitely, I mean, again, is sort of, I think, what those are what collectors want to do, and less about like trying to fix a piece. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, these are not always nefarious people either.
Sure.
I find actually we get a lot of sort of newer collectors want to do more than seasoned collectors. A newer collector comes in and the instinct is, pardon me, I want it to look like it looked in the movie. Or I want it to look as good as it looked on screen. I want it to look brand new. And then you get the more seasoned collectors who are, I either want this to look as good as it can for its age and get restored close to what it looked like at the time, or I want to conserve this as is. What can we do to help preserve this over time?
Prop Store is teaming with Sony Pictures Television to celebrate one of the longest running television series, The Young and the Restless. When I first read that, Dave, I thought Prop Store is teaming. I thought it was like they were teaming with props. There were so many props at Prop Store.
That's their new ad campaign.
They're teaming with Sony Pictures Television props. Yes. But they're teaming up with Sony Pictures Television to celebrate one of the longest running television series, The Young and the Restless, which celebrates its 50th anniversary this year. That's crazy. Whether you're a fan yourself or you know someone else who is, this is a great opportunity to get a prop and give back at the same time.
I was going to say, I have never seen this fine show, The Young and the Restless, but I did ask my wife, and it is her number 2 favorite soap opera. She's a big fan and seemed to know a lot more about this, and perhaps should probably be doing this ad in lieu of us, because she actually was very interested in this. Highlights apparently include a VIP set visit for 2 to meet the stars and producers of The Young and the Restless in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's cool.
Becky's very interested in that.
Yeah.
Autographed items for the 50th anniversary celebration. Many past cast members joined the current cast in signing items for the auction, including photos, scripts, and props, and items from your favorite Young and the Restless stars, such as a dress worn by Nikki Newman, as played by Melody Thomas Scott, for a magazine cover photo shoot. And I said to my wife, who was Nikki Newman? She said, that's Victor's daughter. Victor's the most important. And then look what's here on this list. Victor Newman, as played by Eric Braden's signed portrait, and a Danny Romalotti record sleeve signed by Michael Damian. I don't know what any of this is. She seemed very excited, and she wanted to know, is there any Reva Shane Kim Zimmer stuff? Kim Zimmer is the actress. My wife has apparently seen Kim Zimmer in Broadway shows. That's how much she likes Young and the Restless. So this is your chance for Becky Mandel and all the rest of you Young and the Restless fans to bid and get stuff. Tell us more, Ryan.
The online auction runs now through April 14th, 2023. A portion of the proceeds from the over 65 original props, costumes, and set deck items in the auction will be donated in honor of the Young and Restless co-creator William J. Bell to the Alzheimer's Association to support research to eliminate Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. So again, the auction, it's online only. It runs now through April 14th, 2023. So go to propstore.com/young_R, so Y&R, to bid.
I think the Young and the Restless fans, that's how they call it, Y&R. I think that's what the cool kids say.
Oh,
like no one says Young and the Restless. You say Y&R. Yeah. So propstore.com/Y&R to bid.
But by the way, you know how like everybody does that with shows, and it's like Curb, and then Thrones. I decided our show we're gonna go really avant-garde, and we're just gonna be of.
I can't read this. What are you telling me? Just say it out loud so I can just tell this ad.
Nikki's not the daughter. I messed up. Nikki was the mistress at first.
Nikki is not Victor's daughter. She's angry at herself. She was Victor's mistress.
And then they had children, and it went on.
If that helps you, so you have to bid. But it's a soap opera, so maybe it could be a daughter and a super couple. I mean, I think anything is possible in the world of soap operas. I mean,
there you go.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to buy something from another favorite favorite movie or television title, you can always use Prop Store's buy now platform at propstore.com to select from over 5,000 items available for immediate sale. So use the Dave 10.
Use the Dave 10 for any item under $1. You can use that for anything that's like, a 30-cent item, a 76-cent item. And then obviously if you have something that's more than $1 or $30,000 or $80,000, you can use the Ryan 10 code.
Anything
that's kind of how it works.
Scale,
yeah.
That's one of a kind.
Anything where the shipping is almost as much as the actual prop
you need to freight
itself.
it to your house.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's perfect. You get 10% off, which is great, because obviously if you buy something for $1, that's 10 cents off. And obviously if you buy something for $1 million, it's, So there you go. Yeah, 10%
That's
off.
like a whole, $10,000 off.
Yeah.
So now purchase and vote for your favorite host at the same time. Support Prop Store. And no, 10% was 100,000. That's 1%.
Yeah.
100,000.
Yes. Of $1 million.
I'm
yes.
bad at math. So it doesn't matter because I'm going to win again. But now purchase and vote for your favorite host at the same time. Support Prop Store and the stuff that dreams are made of by making your buy now purchase today at propstore.com.
And don't forget to bid on the Prop Store Y&R, Young and the Restless auction. I would tell you you'll be bidding against my wife, but then I said, so do you want me to get something from this for you? And she just went, absolutely not. I don't want another fucking thing in this house. I mean, there's an element, and I don't know, we've talked about this, I think, a little bit before, and Ryan sort of jump in on this, which is almost like, and again, a little bit of it is restoration. A little bit of it is even just in a world of like buying a prop where sometimes, especially on an older prop, if it looks too good, you know what I mean? Like I don't.
It's a problem. Yeah.
I don't want a shiny, brand new, whatever from whatever movie in the 70s. Parentheses right. Star Wars. You know what I mean? But it's just like I don't want my Casablanca thing looking like it was made yesterday. I just,
Absolutely.
There's something to be said for you want your antiques to look old. Yes, exactly.
You want it to pass the smell test.
It's an artifact, right?
Yeah.
If you put a 2,000-year-old sculpture in a museum, they're not going in and saying, well, this paint is all chipped off. Right.
It's not like, oh, this mummy looks perfect. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
You want a little, dirt
like
on your mummy.
Instagram filter. That's interesting.
Your marble statue had all the paint come off of it. We should be repainting these things.
Right. Exactly.
Is there, Tom, just going with your whole like unrestorable, is there a particular nightmare material, or is it really just all the same suspects, but depending on era it came from and sort of mixes done and whatever else?
So there is, and there are some particular silicones that get used. A lot of folks think of silicone as the replacement for foam latex, and it's going to last forever and all of this other stuff. And what they don't realize is there are multiple different types of silicone, and there are multiple different ways to mix silicone and to use them over time. Thinking back even a little earlier than that, when the first urethanes came out that you could use, these were more stretchy rubbers than a mask rubber. They could be cast real thick. And they can get these plasticizers in them to make them more elastic and stretchy. And that stuff starts coming out around the time of American Werewolf. So this is, 1980-ish. And those are the change-o heads in American Werewolf. They're made from this very stretchy urethane with this heavy amount of plasticizer. Well, over time, those skins literally melted. That plasticizer kept acting on the material and just melted the skin off of those. And that's why what exists today are all the underskulls, which luckily are freaking cool to look at.
No, they happen to be sort of great looking unto themselves, but obviously
and there's such a milestone in effects that it's like, wow, that's okay. But yeah, those original skins didn't hold up. And Rick eventually made copies for his showroom, I think probably out of foam latex or slip. I have to find that out. But those original underskulls had this weird rubber on them. A lot of stop motion figures from the late 80s used a very similar urethane on the hands and sometimes on ties and things like that. And you'll see those where their hands melt. That material starts to shift away. They start using silicones in the newer age, and you get some of the earliest silicone stuff though is made from these overkicked tin-based silicones with heavy amounts of deadener in it, and the deadener has the same effect as that plasticizer. It makes it softer, it makes it stretchier, and some of this is summarizing. So if I'm drifting on materials for any of the real scientists out there on this stuff, this is the layperson version.
Please address all your angry letters to Tom Spina Designs,
George Lucas, Skywalker Ranch.
Dave, with your chemistry aptitude, do you have any corrections?
Oh, this is just all. This is all just terrible.
Honestly, if they want to reach me or Dave, they could probably send it to Skywalker Ranch. And hi Ryan. So anyway,
that's right. If you want to reach me, don't.
You have still not gotten right after all this time.
No, I have a Golden Globe, but I've never been.
All right, that's pretty good, Dave. Can you think of anything more just pitiable and pathetic than that, or is that
a Golden Globe? No, that is about as low. That is as bad as it gets. I mean, it's a terrible organization. I mean, is that? Should we come around to that? But anyway,
no.
Dave,
anyway,
I just want to remind you, my speech was about gratitude.
Oh right, yeah. Well, I don't.
I
think
felt
Dave
like I should have been
heard
higher
our name
in the
that
run-up.
speech.
Yeah.
So
I need to be higher in the run-up.
Do you have a Golden Globe?
Back to these materials. Yes, there are some silicones, especially
they
from the 90s.
hated us. I'll tell you a funny. Hold on, really funny Golden Globe story, really quickly. Back in the Seinfeld days, we once. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Ryan, off the air, but basically, we never won anything. And those were the really early days of the Golden Globes, when they just used to give it to it was a lot of Fox shows, because obviously so every year, best comedy was like a new show on Fox you've never heard of, because they were just buying the awards, the whole Pia Zadora days and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, with Seinfeld, so we never won. So one year we were nominated, and we decided to send our did I tell you this? Our best boy, Pete Papanikolaou, who was this old, best boy. He was just this great guy, and everyone loved him. And we basically sent him and his wife, and we got them a limo, and they went, and they just had the time of their lives. And the Golden Globes was so angry that they were like, "Who's going to accept your award?" We're like, "Pete Papanikolaou is going to accept our award." And they're like, "How dare you?" Whatever. I was like, "What's the difference? You're not giving us the award, so F you." They got really, really angry, but Pete had a lovely night, and that was what was important. He was a really sweet guy. Yeah.
Can I ask who won that year?
I don't even know. I'm sure it was some.
But Pete
Fox
didn't
show.
get to go on stage and give a speech.
No, Pete did not go on stage. There was another year, and I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what show I was on, but I remember we decided we really wanted the Golden Globe. And again, this is years ago, and we were just like, all right, let's go for it. So we called them up to kind of go so we want to invite you guys over. We were going to basically bring them over for photos and give them watches and stuff. But we were going to go for it. And we called them up, and their tack at that moment was, "How dare you wait so long to invite us over to get gifts? We're already scheduled to get our gifts elsewhere." And again, this is that was my
your
Golden Globe
graft
experience.
is inconveniently timed, sir.
How dare you not call us earlier to invite us over for pictures? Yes.
I am immensely grateful to the Hollywood Foreign Press. I just want to say thank you. We did not, it was COVID. We did not host anybody. This is as,
no, I don't think you can give the watches out anymore. You can't do the whole Rolex thing anymore.
No, it's like pharmaceuticals. You can't bribe the doctors anymore.
Oh God.
Hey Tom,
yes.
I have one question I was thinking about with all these movies, and obviously, again, because we're talking about collectibles, we're probably talking about more collectible movies.
Mm-hmm.
But is there one movie that, I don't know, I guess I'll simply say, in your world, in your sort of conservation world, is the true bane of your existence, that for whatever reason, whatever the period and the material, that if someone calls you and just goes, "Hey, I've got something from Beetlejuice," and you're just like, "Motherfucker, that is Beetlejuice. I mean, I love the movie, but that is the worst material ever." And is there one movie that is you're just Con, you know what I mean? It's just
right.
Your arch nemesis.
It's funny. Christine at the shop has a couple of Damn It dolls with different characters on them that, she just, when the calls come in, it's like, ah, but,
I feel like those are more client-based than movie-based.
There's definitely a little of that. No, there are a few. So I'll give you the other end of the spectrum on that is probably Gremlins 2, where
really?
We've seen just so much of it that we literally know those pieces inside and out. We know what they need, and the fact that they were mostly made with polyfoams and not foam latex, or a mix, you know, so it's polyfoam bodies and arms, but then foam latex heads and things like that, where, you know, again, we know what we're in for. Someone comes to us with a Gremlins 2 Gremlin, we're like, here we go. Like, that's the oil change at the shop. Like, yep, Gremlin, you got to bring it into Bay 2.
And is that because he basically, I mean, put all of that stuff into auction over a slow period of time and had all of it to some extent? I mean, there was so much of it.
There is so much of it, too. You know, we've had... I forget what the count is. The last time I counted was years ago, and we were up to 35 or 40 Gremlins from Gremlins 2 that we had handled at that point.
Wow.
And that's probably around the time of Rick's auction, so that's like 2014. Since then,
right.
We have a sign at the shop that just says there's always a Gremlin. And it's just like there's never not a Gremlin in the studio. Whenever someone comes walking through and I'm giving them the tour, it's like, and that's the Gremlin. There's never not a Gremlin. And over here we have this. But on the other side of it...
So hang on. The Hooper, also huge fan of Gremlins.
Sorry,
that's right.
Someone at the door. Yeah,
it's all right.
Hooper.
I mean, he makes an appearance. It's great. We love Hooper. Does that mean that Gremlins 1 is easier to work with? Or you just don't see anything from Gremlins 1?
Well, so Gremlins 2, good to work with. Gremlins 1, similar, very similar. But there's not as much out there from Gremlins 1. There's very few pieces in private hands, or at least that are out in circulation at all from that first
Was Gremlins
movie.
1 also Rick?
No, that was Chris Wayless.
Okay.
So and we just did I did a nice lengthy podcast chat with him on the Tom Spina Designs channel, talking mostly about his work on Return of the Jedi, which people don't realize he designed a lot of the aliens for Return of the Jedi. He was the guy who started the creature shop for that movie at the same time as he was doing...
So is that connected to those maquettes you've been doing? Is
exactly.
He involved with those?
He did a signature edition on the Rees that just sold out. We were working with him on a couple others. But yeah, you know,
hang on.
he's
Bart,
working
make a
on
note.
Raiders.
Chris Wayless, future guest.
Hey, sure, I'll put you in touch. But he's working on Raiders. He's working on Dragon Slayer, and he's setting up the Return of the Jedi creature shop, which Phil would then take over because Gremlins is coming up. And, you know, you have this stretch where he is just right in the thick of all of this stuff. And it's pretty amazing stuff. But yeah, it's always really special when we have something from the first Gremlins come through. But those are, Gremlins are on the, like, we're happy to hear those. On the ones we're not as happy to hear.
What's just a disaster? Yeah.
Ninja Turtles are tough.
Okay.
And it's because
those original. Are you talking about those original movies?
Yeah, the original '90s movie suits. Those are Henson Creature Shop. They're amazing. And then by the third movie, it was another shop, and the name escapes me right now, so my apologies. But the way the suits are constructed, the materials they're made from, and the abuse that they got doing stunts and all kinds of ninja moves. Those are particularly tough to deal with.
God, I love that original movie. That was that
so
hit.
Good.
That hit at exactly the right time in my life
as an evolution in creature suits. You know, and performance from a fully
dark as shit
encapsulated character
movie for kids. Yeah.
What else?
Are the pieces disintegrating, like from the chemical, like whatever they are? Is it part of that too?
For the most
just
part,
foam latex.
And
gotcha.
foam is just it's a
and
material that aggressively ages.
Sweat in, right? And huge and heavy and turtles and
other ones would be anything spandex is a tough one when it comes to making a proper display form, or anything that is a mix of spandex and foam latex. Certainly Spider-Man suits. Honestly, bat suits. Restoring a cowl, doing a mount, doing things like that. There's a bunch of work to it, but it's all right. Doing a head-to-toe bat suit conservation.
Those full suits.
Those are tough. They eat hours in the studio, and sometimes people, we give people the honest quote when they come through on something like that. And it's just like, look, if I'm going to have to put someone on this thing for a couple of months, maybe, that's going to have to get covered. And it's just, these are all of this kind of conservation work and restoration work is just so measured and slow. It's not something you can just rush through. And sometimes you get people who are like, well, could you give me the $3,000 version of that? You know, and it's like, I could, but that wouldn't be good for the piece, so I can't, you know. And sometimes there is some sort of compromise you can come up with where you have someone who says, oh, can you restore this piece 100% and make it look perfect? You know, it's like, no, but we could conserve it and we can keep that into your budget or whatever. And that's a lot of times, you know, those are the questions when folks come in. What do you expect this to look like at the end of the process? And do you have a budget we have to be conscious of?
Right. I think it's also fascinating to sort of see what some of these things look like, you know, again, on the A side. It's one of the things I do like on your website, of being able to sort of see the A side, because sometimes it looks okay to begin with. I mean, sometimes it is just sort of making it look better, but it looked pretty okay to begin with. Yeah. And then obviously there are the ones where they're shredded or, you know, falling, you know, those, I find those obviously more interesting from a just sort of a looky-loo perspective.
They're certainly the ones that do better if we post them on social, you know, the dramatic before and after. Everyone wants to see that. But sometimes the conservation form that just supports a piece in the right way actually took way more work and time because of just how measured and careful that was.
Sometimes, honestly, with a simple mask or a helmet, just putting it on a form just changes everything about it, and just just go, oh wow,
filling
that's
it out,
great,
getting it in the right shape.
I mean, in terms of my bat cowl, and I don't remember how much you remember it. It was sold to me as sold. I mean, I was buying it, but I mean, it was pitched to me as being in pretty rough shape, and I remember being like really prepped for it. And then I saw the first photo, and you guys already had it in your hands. You just hadn't. I think all you had done was kind of put it on the form. I don't think you had done. You just kind of stabilized it. You hadn't done any of the real sort of fill-in conservation work. And I remember seeing it. I was like, that just looks to me like a 30-year-old bat cowl. Right. Like, yeah, it doesn't look as perfect. Brandon at some point had one of the unused ones that was finished but unused, and it was gorgeous. I mean, it looks like a brand new like RPF.
No, it looks like it rolled off the floor room.
In the best,
exactly.
in the best way.
Line. Yeah.
But for me, it's like I wanted the one that told the story and the age and everything. So I actually prefer, and I knew that mine was used and whatever. But in terms of how those go, where did it fall on like a scale of like 0 to 10 in terms of like, you know, in terms of, was it the median? Was it 5? Was it pretty good?
I feel like that one was sort of in the middle. We've got we've definitely gotten ones where you sort of look at it and but again, with so much of this stuff, it's like what I was saying about Dave's Ugnaught. You know, where you saw that was already kind of set up on a form. If that just came into your hands in a ball of muslin, you know, in a box, and you open it up and it's got that foam latex smell and there's black dust everywhere from this thing, you might have gone like, you know, but once it comes out of there, it gets set up, it starts getting preserved, we put it on the right shape, get everything filled out the way it should be. All of a sudden, you're just like, no, okay, there's a lot of this here. This is not a disaster. This is actually a good representation of something for its age. And that I remember that piece being like in the, you know, if 10 is the best that's ever come in and 0 is, oh my God, just throw it away.
Because there have been ones, I mean, you've done, I mean, I don't think they were 0, throw them away, but I don't know, maybe they'd be more of like a 3 where you like an ear is broken off and you have to rebuild an ear and whatnot, which definitely, I guess, would be more extreme, Ryan, than the state of yours. I mean, and even those can look decent, but you know, that for me, that's my own personal weird line of demarcation, which is not the point of this, but I'm just saying there definitely have been some bad ones. And I've seen,
and Ryan, you know, I you know, to leave you in suspense, I won't tell you what I would rate yours. No, I think I recall that being a 5-ish, 5 or 6. You know, I tend to grade things better than I think most people do though, because I see the potential in them. You know, and we run into this with all of the types of projects we do. You know, we do stuff. We just finished something for an ad agency that was a life-size character, you know, of a person. And it's just like, sometimes you've got to show them a bald sculpt of something and just kind of go like, I know what this is going to look like when we put the hair on. Just trust me, or
boy, I'm surprised you even bother showing it to them, because that's my experience of like the network saying, just show it to us without the laugh track. We work in TV. We know how to watch something. And then it's like, what'd you guys think? It didn't seem funny. It's like, because I showed it to you without a laugh track.
Right,
I mean, this is back from the.
I had to do that with all of season 1 of House of the Dragon, Dave. We kept having turnover cuts without the laugh track, and it was tough too.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a better show with the laugh track.
Damon is funnier with the laugh track.
It's a Golden Globe winning sort of thing.
That's correct.
If you get the laugh track in there.
Thank you, Tom.
In terms of that range, though, I tend to always probably see things a little higher than they are. I think a lot of times, though, it's just, it's like you get it in your hands. You've just got to have it in front of you to see, like, what am I really working with here? And most of the time, there's more than you think. Now, some of the time, like you said, there's something missing. We did an Aliens costume restoration, head to toe. It wasn't really a restoration as much as a conservation, and it was putting it on a nice display form. And again, go to the website, search Aliens, it'll come up.
Yeah.
And this was one of those things. It was the costume that had been on display at the end of the MGM Studios tour in Florida, where you'd get off the backlot tour and you'd walk through a little prop exhibit, and they had this alien costume there for a long time. The tail had some damage to it, and the hands were in a weird urethane, which is something that was one of those weird things from the time period. And one of them was actually in pretty good shape. The other one was melting and was very stuck to itself, and wasn't something that was going to be easy to there's not a good preservation angle for something like that, because this is just a liquefying kind of material breakdown. So we were able to digitally recreate the other hand and flip it and make a 3D printed hand for the side that was missing one and paint it to match. And that's right there is always the other conversation. Do you paint it to match? And do you age it so it blends in? Do you paint it in a solid color and say just make that hand all black or all gray? All of this is customer preference and what is that person's aesthetic? And in this case, he said, let's just paint it to match. It's always going to be a resin material on that.
There was just that other hand. There was just nothing. It was just gone.
It was like we could have put it on there. We could have cleaned it up. We could have alcoholed and treated the surface and basically made it not sticky for now. But it was immediately going to start being sticky again, and it's going to now you've got something possibly dripping or oozing on other parts of the costume.
It was going to not only hurt itself, but hurt everything around it.
So we set that aside, we wrap it in muslin, we put it in a box, and unfortunately that doesn't become part of the display. But for his visual completion, we were able to recreate the other hand digitally and put that in place, and that was really neat. And then it was coming up with, how do you support that big head? How do you make sure that the foam on that doesn't crack over time? Because it's it's like a giant hot dog supported in the middle with a head. It's just gonna
What did you end up doing? Did you put a rod in to kind of support it?
Flat stock aluminum inside with a padded insert on the top. We filled out the front of the head with an extension and the back with that long flat stock.
I got to see this. I've long coveted one of those alien warriors from the second film. And
I guess I didn't even realize. I thought there were only pieces. I didn't realize a whole one had even survived.
It's probably last. I would say about a year and a half ago that would have gone up on the website.
Wow, okay.
So hit up tomspinadesigns.com, search aliens, and look for the really cool display. And it had, of course, we did a great, like the sci-fi grading themed base with the hazard stripes, the yellow and black stripes, the diagonals, and just brought in some of the movie aesthetic with the base to give it some context and give the guy some drama in the display. And that's always the other element. Do you want something themed with a lot of context that shows you where it came from? Do you want something museum style that is minimal and ducks out of the way of the piece? Do you want something really over the top? We've had people, we just built a display now. I don't know if we're going to be able to put it on the site, so I won't talk specifically about it yet, but it was someone that had a car from a movie that was a pretty large model, like 3 or 4 feet, and we built like this 6 foot long, 3 foot deep, basically a whole town to put this thing in. And it's just, everybody's got a different aesthetic. Everybody's got a different thing they want to do with it. And some people have
giant basements.
Exactly.
But okay, yeah.
Some people have the room to play like that, and they want to make a whole scene out of it because that piece is that important to them. Others, maybe they, I tend to go with kind of more of a museum aesthetic, very minimal.
As do I.
Even where I'm doing, mannequins, they're on, they're not on themed bases or anything like that.
Right.
Although,
so
actually,
great.
Rocketeer there, let me, if I can get his base. He's got a little bit of a themed base.
There's a little Art Deco to it, but it's not
fine.
like punch you in the face. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I tend not to punch people in the face
You didn't build
with
a
my Art Deco
Zeppelin
bases.
for him to stand on.
But that's where that's the conversation, right? Like that to me is the fun part of all of these projects. We're all collectors. They talk to me. We speak
but obviously
the language.
that's all fine and good. But that is obviously, let's make sure, for example, with the Rocketeer, let's make sure the leather jacket isn't cracking. Let's make sure everything is fine and good. And then, yes, you can have your fun with your base or anything.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
So those are those sort of end
and as you
details.
can see with all of them, very
Yeah.
minimal neutral poses. The coming up with something that supports the costume, and then does the base want to give it a little context? And it just depends on the piece. And it's funny, most of the time on this stuff, they're just very, very simple, if anything, bases that I use for myself. There's also the cobbler's child has no shoes. I spend all my time making fun themed stuff for everybody else, and it's just like, I finished my display. Give me a black piece of wood, done.
Yeah.
No, I guess in a funny way, it's like the chef that doesn't want to eat his own food.
Right.
It's just sort of like let's just keep it simple.
Yeah.
I've got a last question, and Ryan, I don't know if you have anything else, but I was just curious. You were talking about those Batman pieces that took forever. I was going to ask you, what's not from someone not picking it up, but what's the longest you've ever had to conserve something or work on something? Is there something that was such a I think of it as like the guy that comes in with, from the car crash and you have to rebuild their leg. You know what I mean? Like is there anything that was just
and we're right back to
holy
me being
crap?
the grease monkey under the car.
Is there a record in the shop of and again, not from somebody not picking it up, because that actually could
That's
be me.
another
But anyway,
record,
yes, yeah.
And off the air, we have some mutual friends, but the ones that come to mind are we've had a Ninja Turtle that did take a bunch of time, but there was a Borg Queen that came in. We've done 2 or 3 of them now, but the first one that we did was a really challenging in terms of the condition. We were also doing a full head for this thing, so I actually sculpted a hyper-realistic, version of the Queen herself, and we also had the tech on the back for her head to deal with. Michael Burnett, who makeup artist, done a bunch of film work and stuff, was luckily a friend of mine. He had worked with the company that did the replica Borg Queen statue that came out in the 90s or the early 2000s.
They had something that you
and
could work
they had
from.
pulled some things from the mold, so we were able to get castings of her feet to use parts from and some of the tech pieces. Other stuff we had to recreate. But the suit itself is, foam latex over spandex or over wetsuit material. It's extremely fragile. It was very crumbly. It needed a ton of repair, but it also had to go on a tiny, tiny mannequin that wouldn't stress or hurt it in the future. And just getting the body made for that thing took forever. And then once it was on the body, then we go about the whole restoring it process and everything like that. Maria at the shop was working on that one for what felt like, it really wouldn't surprise me if we put 6 months into that project. It was a very, very long time. And for us now, even back then, I think, that was a time when maybe we had 5 or 6 people full-time at the shop. We're now 18 or so every day. And it's, we'll still have things that are in there for a long period of time, but it's not like the whole, 20 people working on one thing. Everybody's flitting about doing all their different stuff, and you'll just have one person, headphones in, All right, back to the bat suit. There's you know what? Another one is Power Rangers from the '90s movie. We've had a bunch of those come
just
through.
Those suits,
they're actual suits. Those are extremely challenging because they were made from a pleather type material that stretches out over time and that the surface gets sticky. The armor on top was made from heavy, heavy, thick urethane rubber, which can discolor over time. All of that weight can pull on the fabric. And they also were used and sweat in and, all kinds of stunts. So there's lots of tears and things like that to deal with. And they weren't necessarily stored in the best condition. They were usually on display at like Planet Hollywood or whatever. So it really, those are probably up there in terms of like stuff that's challenging too.
Wow, there's a pattern to it, which is kind of interesting to hear. I hadn't really thought about, especially in that sort of whatever it would be, I guess late, was it 90s?
Yeah, like that early 90s era. I wonder if
action movie sort of character stuff.
That was a time where there was an evolution happening in the movie costume.
Right.
Prior to that, they would have just been in spandex, and that would have been it. But then Batman comes out, and it's like, oh, we've got to have armored pieces here and stuff like that.
Next
or we've
level,
got to come up with three-dimensional elements. And, and then from there, you shift into that more tactical look, that Batman Begins style, where you have that mix of maybe this is urethane, maybe there's some foam rubber, maybe there's some mesh, and now you start getting into the modern approach of just layers of textured fabrics and things with 3D printed patterns on them and all kinds of crazy stuff, which... It's fun.
But those seem to be, at least for the moment, in your mind, holding up more. Yeah. That's interesting when they've come through your shop.
Yeah,
wow.
We've gotten to do some stuff from Captain America. We've gotten to do some stuff from Daredevil. Those are outstanding costumes to work with. They're still not, without challenges in terms of fitting and getting the right shape inside of them, because getting a costume and figuring out what the actor actually looked like underneath it is no small.
But they're not cracking and dissolving. Yes, exactly, and so, stretched out. And whatever.
We get a Daredevil costume come through from the Netflix show, and it's just like, oh, thank you. This is great. I'll do these all day.
Right.
Really cool.
I mean, my only last thing was like a coming soon for you, Tom. I have a head to Dallas costume from Alien that I have a mannequin. It just needs some help. I mean, it really needs to fill the suit out because those like pressure suits that look like they're kind of inflated from within. It needs a little posing help and probably some conservation stuff. And I got it's currently built with replica boots, so the support post kind of goes through the boot because it's just a replica. So we were fine drilling a hole in it. But I need. I got screen used boots after that. So at some point in the coming year or so, I'm going to just ship the whole thing out to you and just sort of say, please figure it out and make it look great. But the nice thing is it's not a Ninja Turtle.
That's great.
There's no foam latex on it as far as I know. Some of the cloth pieces have been torn and ripped, and they might need a little bit of just conservation TLC to just make sure it doesn't get any worse, over time. I think it's just tears. I don't think it's stress stuff. I just think it was poorly sort of stored.
There's always stuff like that, and there's plenty you can do with that, whether it's, carefully hand stitching up a tear or putting a fabric patch behind it and gluing the pieces on that so that you're not introducing anything new on the exterior. You're just, very, very subtly keeping things together. That's amazing. I love those suits too. I'm such
they're so cool.
Yeah, that movie. Yeah. Jeez. But we're ready anytime.
Great. Well, it'll be a good one for you guys because I feel like it's it really is actually more of a I think, and you tell me, but I think because of the materials involved, I think it's really more of a display kind of issue versus.
But again, display conservation, conserving. But I mean, displaying it so that it stays
display
good.
For conservation.
And we've had there was a great before and after that I think they wound up putting on the site. We did a pair of mannequins for someone. It was for a Captain America costume and a Hydra agent costume. And the before is those costumes on a standard muscular male mannequin, not like a skinny mannequin, nothing intentionally deceptive or anything like that. And the after is on the custom form that we did to, actually fill that costume out and give it some energy and give it some pose. And it is one of these things where it's like, maybe it's 20% difference in terms of the body size and stuff like that. But the difference in how it displays is just off the charts. And it just, it went from the teenager wearing his dad's suit in an emergency to, whatever, to Captain America.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I love seeing that kind of before and after. And I feel like this suit's going to be one of those because it's not an easy thing to display a spacesuit. One of the cooler ones, and this isn't on the site yet, but we actually had Gus Grissom's training NASA spacesuit, like an actual NASA spacesuit in the studio for a conservation and for a form.
Wow.
Earlier,
a couple of years
last year.
I don't know if you ever saw this, Tom, but they restored the Neil Armstrong suit at the Smithsonian, and they kind of were really great about really like letting you see every facet of that restoration, and it's sort of fascinating. I think it's on the Smithsonian website.
Yeah, I did catch that. And I know, I think Tested or Adam Savage went down and did some videos there when they were doing it too.
Oh, okay.
I think that was how I found out about it. But yeah, it's stuff like that where it's like, you see it in a box and it's cool.
So did you build a display
we
for this
did,
Grissom
we
suit?
built a custom form made to fit, made to support the heavy neck piece and all of that stuff, and done in a way because it's almost like a wardrobe tag on the inside. It's Grissom training or whatever right in there around the neck. So we actually made the mannequin with a negative for the neck so you could see in and still see that tag, but it came up enough on the sides to support the neck ring and take that weight off of the suit. It was, that was one of the few. So there was that, and I think Gizmo in the last year that came through. So we have all these disparate personalities that work in the shop, right? They're all buzzing through the studios back and forth. We have 3 different, interconnected units that we work in, some subspaces within them, but the 3 main sort of areas. And they'll be coming up to the front office and going through sort of shipping and receiving. And usually they walk right past whatever's there unless it's their thing. We got one guy, if there's a sword there, he's stopping and looking at the sword. Doesn't matter what movie it's from. We got people who love Back to the Future. So if anything's Back to the Future is, they're stopping and looking at it. But when we had Gizmo there and when we had Gus Grissom's spacesuit, literally everybody walked in, stopped, turned, looked at it. And then as soon as 3 or 4 of them gathered, everybody just, and you've just got this nearly 20-person show and tell happening with, oh my God, I can't believe that's here. And I mean, I'm lucky that, I'm not yet jaded. I should be.
Well, it sounds like there's always something new, which is kind of neat.
Yeah,
I'm curious, just for my own, you don't have to obviously names, but like, was the Grissom thing from a prop collector who also collects space stuff, or did this just come to you sideways from a space collector?
That's a great question. My understanding was space collector. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm gonna amend that because it's someone that we did a display for The Right Stuff movie suit a couple of years back.
So maybe space movie and then real space.
Probably.
Gotcha. Yeah. Gotcha.
That's
cool.
still
a space collector. That's really
but
neat.
yeah,
cool.
It is neat stuff, man. And like you said, the variety is probably what keeps me from getting jaded.
Right to us.
Yeah, we want to talk to you, space guy. So come on the show.
Yeah, space
come
man.
on the show, you coward. I'll, if you ever want, if you ever see something on our site and you're like, hey, I want to talk to that guy, I'll at least give them your information.
Yeah.
I would never give you theirs.
Yeah, great.
But
should we play the game?
Yeah. Do you have I have a sort of round the world topic, Dave. Do you have something very specific?
No, my topic, which I was thinking about, was I was trying to think of like if one of the movies he named that like where the stuff was sort of like terrible, but like I'm not really sure. But I was thinking like, well, what would you want from
Which
that movie?
Ninja Turtle would you want?
Yeah, I know, but it just starts to seem like okay, Leonardo.
Right, yeah.
Like it's not really a fun answer.
Oh, come on.
Nunchucks. So I don't know if that was great. Then I was trying to think of like sort of the anti-cantina question, which is not counting the original Star Wars. What movie creature would you like not counting any of the Star Wars movies? Like, what other movie creature would you want to add to sort of your
pretty cool
cantina collections? But I also then was like something like that. But what do you got, Ryan?
Well, I was going to do something like that,
Just
but like
Rick Baker
specific,
Gotcha.
Rick Baker specific, sort of any, and I would say even cantina. I mean, sure, go ahead, cantina based, but anything Rick Baker. Just Tom, obviously such a fan. You got to handle a bunch of his stuff.
I'm always handling his stuff
in the auction. Where yes, there you go. Dave and I are big fans from other things. I just think we have there's sort of a range of interests in this podcast. So it might be an interesting place to go.
Sure.
And I already have my answer. So
you go first. Then go first.
So okay, I'll go first. So actually, I just rewatched it recently. In glorious 4K. God, that format. You just think after HD, you see the jump to HD, and you're like, how can it get any better than this? Right. And then you see 4K, and you're like, well, certainly this is the end of it. Just the sound and the crispness of it. It's just it almost looks better than it should. That kind of thing. But anyway, just watched Men in Black again, and I freaking love that movie. It's just such a perfect film, and it's 100 minutes long. There's no bullshit in it. And the movie starts and there's not a wasted beat in the whole thing. There's no quiet lay down thing. And then you're in the third act before you know it. And they're solving the mission. And it's great. It's just in and out and just, God,
super fun
and just
all the way through.
So brilliantly written. I mean, the storytelling, the concept of it, the exploitation of all the stuff around, who's a hidden alien and conspiracies and the tabloids and all that. I just love it. Anyway, the thing that I would take from that movie is I saw it in like glorious 4K high definition last night. Is that the what's his name? The jewel dealer that he died.
The guy like splits in half.
Yeah, and then his head opens and there's the tiny alien operating the thing, and that was all like a Rick Baker design, right? I love
that guy.
I was going to this. Right. Okay. No, I went to the pawn shop guy. No, you're right. Yeah, totally.
No, Jeeves. No. No, the guy that has Orion's the galaxies on Orions belt. Yeah, the diamond dealer.
Yeah, and the thing opens up and
the head opens and
the old man. Yeah.
That thing is it's just like it's everything. It's a creature. It's it's a spaceship. It's everything. I love.
So I have a question for you about that though. Because they built two versions of that. Do you want the one that is person-sized and the head opens up and there's a little miniature guy? Or do you want the one where that alien was almost 4 feet tall because they built like a 6 foot tall interior of the head to do the close-ups of him
so
talking?
Funny. I assumed there was a big one, but I would never have guessed it was
massive.
That big. I would have said like, I don't know. I know it sounds silly. I would have said like 2 feet or something. The puppet was like, the head was this big.
Yeah, the head was like, like person size.
That's amazing.
Wild.
So which would you want?
I want the human head scale one, of course.
That makes sense.
Because
I want them to build me one that's like 1 foot. That's what I would like them to build.
Wants the one that
like
is the
build a third one.
Yes.
Yes, they need to build another one. Rick needs to reopen the lab and build me one.
So as
that's pretty great.
Who goes next here, David?
Go for it. You go. I'll hit clean up.
If I'm so the easy one for me would be to pick something Cantina, because that's just obviously a collecting focus for me and something I'm so passionate about. And Rick had...
Is there anything even left? I mean, honestly.
Yeah. There is. Yeah, sure. But I know.
It just says the guy with five Cantina masks behind him.
Out of curiosity, we know what you have because we've seen you pan around your office. How of the number, like, say there are, X Cantina aliens. Right. What percentage of the Cantina have you handled and restored?
I figure that's 100% at this point, but yeah.
Not quite 100, but certainly more than 50 have probably, at least have handled, if not restored, or conserved in some way. Certainly, Bob Burns has a big collection of them, and we've done stuff with Bob. I've got the stuff I've got. There's the pieces that Doug had, all the Cantina band guys. At some point, I had handled most of those. There's a few other pieces here or there. Some of the pretty much everything that Phil had went through as well. The other Duros, the snake alien, the Yamnose guy that Gus has,
yep.
and
Gus has,
your Mosep head there that was Stewart's.
Who's missing at this point? Like
there's a handful that haven't turned up, but
original Greedo is
the
that
original
around?
Greedo is around. There were two that are technically
two Greedos,
Greedo.
right?
One that went to the Sci-Fi Museum, that was the one for the close-ups where it had the mechanical mouth, and the one that is that Paul Blake wore in the UK shoot before they had articulated it is in a private collection. I don't know if that one's public or not, so I don't want to mention names. But yeah, most of them have turned up. There's a handful of most of the things Stuart Freeborn worked on turned up because Stuart very thoughtfully saved them. The big praying mantis at the bar didn't turn up.
Oh yeah,
and the
and you were saying Muftak?
Muftak is around. That's over at Bob's.
Oh, okay.
That's at Bob's. I saw that. That's pretty amazing looking.
That's a really big conservation piece we did as well. If you go on our website, look that up. We had him in the studio for quite a bit of time working on him. Was
that just because of the fur? Was that a big part of it?
We literally shampooed him, so that was fun. But twice. Because he had just years of like shop dust from being at Rick's and then dust from being at Bob's, but underneath the fur was polyfoam that was starting to wear out, and he wasn't on any kind of a form, so there were stress points, things had torn, seams had separated. There was just a lot of tiny work over a long period of time with that, and mainly, again, how do you make that form? Like, what does Muftak look like on the inside? You got to figure that out. Anyway, back to my thing. So the easy answer would be, one of the Cantina guys, one of the ones that like Rick made probably even before the Cantina that just got reused, like the bat alien or the kind of like werewolf looking guys or the devil guy. But I'll probably say, and then American Werewolf is the other obvious. Geez, this is tough. My inclination is a full Harry and the Hendersons. Because
I would not have thought you were going there.
That to me is like Rick's most expressive character that I think he built, and I feel like. And
does that exist?
During
in the world?
His auction, there was a bunch of those pieces that went out.
Oh, there was. I don't remember that at all.
You could have pulled together enough to make a full head to toe. The hand knit suit, the muscle suit underneath, et cetera, et cetera. But that might be. Pardon me. That might be.
Was Harry? Was that also Kevin Peter?
Yes, it was.
It was
Peter
the
Hall.
same guy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The Predator.
Yep.
Yeah.
Predator,
In his kinder, gentler side, wearing blue contacts.
That's right. That's when he.
So that was Jean-Claude Van Damme and Harry. That was Jean-Claude Van Damme and Harry and the Hendersons. He was great. Yeah. No, he was.
There was also a giant bird inside the Harry and the Hendersons.
That's right. Yeah, with the thing.
They dressed up a monkey, but it worked really well. Well, I'm going to go. That's really cool. Harry and the Hendersons was not where I thought you were going with that. I am going. I am going American Werewolf in London. I just, I don't.
And is that the wolf? Is that the Change-O head? Like, where do you?
The Change-O head would be incredible. I mean, I just like I remember. I don't know. I was just. That's where I feel like. What year is that?
1981?
Sorry, that's 81? 81?
81.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So obviously it's after Star Wars, and obviously Star Wars was, Star Wars and probably watching old like Star Trek on TV, although obviously there weren't a huge number of aliens on the old Star Trek. Star Wars, the first time I was like, whoa, like movie making and all that kind of stuff. But like watching Star Wars, there was a sense of these are masks, if that makes any sense. But American Werewolf in London for 11-year-old me was the first time it was like, how the hell are they doing that? Do you know what I mean? I guess that's and that's probably the I guess the why on the Change-O mask or whatever it is now, the Change-O exoskeleton or whatever you want to call it, because that's what's left. But that's just incredible. And again, it's a funny thing. It's not sure. I can't swear to you I would ever bid on it. Do you know what I mean? Or like do what I had to do to get it.
Right.
But I guess in that sort of in our game world, if I can have anything, I would take that because it just to me, it was everything that was incredible about movie making and Rick Baker and that movie and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that is my true answer. Yeah.
I'm not like pointing at you here. My phone just came up with the 10% battery warning, which I'm like, hey, I guess that's really nicely timed, phone. Thank you.
I think that's perfect. That's
Thank you.
Your phone has gotten tired of us.
Right.
Fair enough.
Never mind my
it's
poor
not
wife
wrong.
upstairs. Sure.
It's not wrong. No, we should go Super Bowl Sunday. I know you got to get back to the Super Bowl.
I've got a lot not to watch. So,
all right. Well, fantastic. Well, Tom, obviously people can find you on your website.
Yep. Tom Spina Designs. And please check out Regal Robot as well, regalrobot.com or at Regal Robot or at Tom Spina
lots of fun,
Designs.
cool products. Gaffy stick, very exciting.
All this stuff,
Banter.
the whole archive
cantina,
collection,
the maquettes,
is just,
the archive
we're
stuff,
scanning
really cool.
stuff at the ranch and we're giving people a chance to put the archives in their homes. I mean, it's like, to me, it's a dream come true. All those maquettes, those creature maquettes are just like,
it's really special just because the easiest way I can say it is like, having had, those books all those years, the various archive books, whatever. And then obviously, and you guys know what I'm talking about, going to the archives and seeing those pieces and being like, I can never have those. I can only visit them in the archives whenever I want to, whenever
Anytime
I can go up. I mean, I can go up there every week and visit them.
Like a normal
if
person
you
would do.
can't, then this is a really good way of seeing those pieces.
I would think 1/3
I guess
of
I'm
the
going to
people
have
on
to
this
subscribe to
podcast
Regal
would-
Robot, the mailing list.
That's But yes,
you are not allowed to do that either.
Please do subscribe to the Regal Robot mailing list. Yeah, no, it is, and it's like, to be like, we're sitting here now, we're so far ahead on this stuff too, where it's like we've released 3 or 4 or 5 of these archive collection maquettes, and we've been prototyping others, and it's like, I'm starting to put together my shelves, and it's just like, you walk in and you look and you're just like, I feel like I did something wrong. Did somebody smuggle these out? Like, this is, because they're,
do you ever think of buying one of the, how they have those very industrial, like, garage shelving units in the archives? Have you ever thought about just getting one of those for your living room, which is not exactly what you'd really want to display things, but it would just so like they're so industrial, and how they look.
I think my real dream on those maquettes would be to recreate that panning shot from Star Wars to Jedi, where they have like the goofy music going, and they just show you, close to 90 creatures were made for this movie, and there's just, all these different maquettes there, and like, to be able to put that together, or there's the cover to the Smithsonian magazine
where
that had all the
there with
maquettes on
everything.
it.
Oh, okay.
Like, how amazing would it be to set that whole thing up on a little tiered shelf and put that photo next to it and just be able to go like, we did it. We scanned all of those real ones and recreated them as perfectly as we could. Like, it's dream come true.
I want a fully functioning Salacious Crumb puppet, Tom.
Technically within our license, and we could absolutely talk about that as a custom item if you want it.
Really? Excellent.
Do you think there's a market for that? I know this has nothing to do with anything. I feel like there could be a market.
There
for
probably
that, no?
would be. It would be.
Hell yeah.
The budget is really the question. For us to make it the way they made the movie puppet, we'd have to pull in a slightly different direction than that, because it's more fabricated. We'd want it more repeatable and just from an accuracy point of view. But there's something there. It could be done. The challenge is, it's going to have to be made out of flexible materials. How do they hold up over time? Maybe we'd have to ship it with a conservation form. But it is technically within the license, and it is something we could do if you ever wanted to talk about that.
All right.
Technically within the license.
That's
the Tom Spina story.
That's right. The Tom Spina story. Technically not going to get me caught by Disney. Yeah.
Episode title? Very good. Very good. Tom, this was really great.
Thank
you. Yeah,
you're
really fun.
You're the best return guest we've ever had.
Tight 2 hours. Tight 2 hours. Yeah.
And again, I'm bringing the sandwich
Action-packed.
card. I'd like a punch. I think, after... Is it 6 or 8 shows that I get a sandwich?
No,
You get
11 shows, you get a Golden Globe.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Mine, actually.
Yes. Yeah. I'm never going to get one.
Or the
So
one
for
that Dave
me,
tried to buy. Yeah.
Thank you,
no,
guys.
you come back the third time, you get the smoking jacket, just like on Saturday Night Live. So
I'll prepare my
stay
pipe.
The Third Timers Club.
tuned. Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you. This has been amazing. Find Tom on the internet. Tom, I'm going to send you Dallas. I'm going to put that together because I feel like you'll need years to work on that, and that's the next time I will be able to see it. Follow us at Props Podcast on all social media channels. Subscribe to us on YouTube. You can watch a very visual podcast here.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to see this time. You'll be able to see it on social media too, but yeah, YouTube will be a great place to watch this one.
Subscribe to us on all platforms. Please rate us. Let everybody know. Tell your friends. And email us at dreamsaremadepodcast@gmail.com. And on we go with this great unfolding season 5. So join us again next week. We will be back.